The chair in Marcus Hale's executive suite cost more than most people's cars. Zara Coleman did not know that when her exhausted body finally gave out and collapsed into it at 2:47 in the morning. She had been cleaning floors for 16 hours straight across 3 different jobs. Her knees ached in the deep, sustained way that comes from hours on hard surfaces without adequate rest between shifts. Her hands were raw and cracked from the industrial bleach she used at the airport contract. The skin around her knuckles split in 2 places that had not fully healed in 3 weeks. Her eyes burned with the kind of exhaustion that eventually stops being something you fight and becomes simply the texture of your existence. Just 5 minutes, she told herself, as her eyelids dropped toward the Beautisoft leather of the headrest. Just 5 minutes and then back to work. Nobody comes to the office this late anyway. She was wrong. Comment where you're watching from right now before we go any further. If you're in the United States, type US. Watching from the United Kingdom, type UK. Australia, type A, US. Canada, type Canada. Norway, type Norway. Switzerland, type Switzerland. Denmark, type Denmark. Drop your country below because this story is going to take you somewhere you are not expecting and we want to know you were here for it. At 3:15 in the morning, Marcus Hale's private elevator opened with a soft chime that Zara did not hear. His tall frame stepped into the darkness of his executive office on the 64th floor, the room lit only by the city glowing through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind his desk. The skyline reflecting off Lake Michigan in the distance, the whole scene so familiar to him after years of late returns to this office that he barely registered it. He reached for the light switch and flipped it on. And there she was, a woman asleep in his chair behind his desk. Her cleaning cart was parked against the wall beside her, mops and supply bottles and folded cloths arranged around it as though she had been mid-task when something simply gave out. A stack of fresh towels sat on the credenza behind the desk, half arranged and then abandoned. Her head rested against the leather back of the chair. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her feet were still in their worn work shoes. She looked as though she had been running at full speed for a very long time and had simply stopped. Marcus's jaw tightened. His head of security, a former soldier named Preston who had worked for Marcus for 7 years and understood the parameters of the job as well as anyone alive, materialized at his shoulder from the corridor. "Sir," Preston said quietly, "I will have her removed immediately." "No." Marcus's voice was flat and cold and completely certain. "Let her sleep." Preston blinked. He had learned in 7 years not to visibly react to things Marcus said, but this tested that training. Everyone who worked for Marcus Hale understood the man's relationship with order and control and cleanliness in the way that you understand the relationship between electricity and water. It was not a preference. It was a fundamental organizing principle. Marcus wore gloves when shaking hands in business meetings. He had his office deep cleaned twice daily by a specific team using specific products in a specific sequence. He had once terminated a senior director of 11 years for leaving a coffee ring on the surface of a conference table. The termination had been effective immediately, and now he was choosing to let a stranger sleep in his personal chair behind his personal desk. "Sir," Preston said, carefully. Marcus's eyes had not left the sleeping woman's face. He was studying it with the same focused attention he gave to financial projections and legal documents, reading something in it that required concentration. "Get me the personal cell number for the owner of Meridian Cleaning Services," Marcus said. "I know what time it is. I do not care. 5 minutes." He made the call, spoke briefly and with complete precision, then made another. "Preston." "Oh, sir, find me something long and thin, a ruler, something I can use to wake her without making physical contact." Preston was gone and back in under 2 minutes with a long wooden ruler from the supply cabinet in the corridor. Marcus took it. He pulled on a pair of black leather gloves, the kind he kept in his jacket pocket for situations that required contact with surfaces or people he had not anticipated. His movements were controlled and deliberate and contained. He approached the chair slowly, the ruler held loosely in one gloved hand. Zara slept on, completely, entirely unaware that the most powerful man in the building was standing directly over her, examining her face with an expression that nobody in his professional or personal life would have been able to accurately name. What is Marcus Hale about to do? And how did a woman working 3 cleaning jobs end up asleep in the office of a billionaire who controls everything in his world down to the direction the vacuum cord is coiled? This story is going to take you somewhere real. Let us go back to where it all began. 3 days earlier, the smell of the hospital corridor had stopped bothering Zara 6 months ago. She had spent so much time in this building that it had absorbed itself into her life the way background noise eventually becomes silence. She sat in the chair beside the bed and held the hand without the IV line and listened to the heart monitor mark time with its patient, mechanical rhythm. Mama Rose was unconscious. She had been unconscious for 2 days. Her body was still here, still breathing, still present in the room. But the woman who had raised Zara on her own for 20 years after Zara's father left, who had worked 2 jobs for decades and never once made Zara feel the weight of it, who sang gospel songs in the kitchen at 6 in the morning and could read the state of Zara's heart from across a room, that woman was somewhere unreachable right now. Dr. Osi came in quietly in blue scrubs with the particular manner of a physician who has learned to deliver difficult news without making it feel like an ambush. "Miss Coleman," Zara stood. "Tell me, your mother's condition is deteriorating faster than we had projected. The experimental treatment has been effective, but its progress is slower than we need, given the timeline of the tumor's development. The window for the surgical removal of the primary tumor is narrowing considerably. We need to operate within the week, or we risk losing the opportunity entirely." "Then operate." Zara's voice was steady. She had been practicing steadiness for 6 months. It was its own kind of muscle. Dr. Osi paused with the specific pause of a person about to introduce a variable that changes everything. "There is the matter of the outstanding balance. The hospital requires at minimum half of the total procedural cost before we can schedule a surgery of this complexity. That figure is $140,000. We need evidence of that commitment by the end of this week, Miss Coleman. $140,000. The room shifted, slightly the way rooms shift when something is said that cannot be unsaid. Zara had done this arithmetic so many times it lived in her body rather than her mind. She made roughly $12 an hour at the diner where she worked the morning shift, $15 an hour at the office cleaning company that took her afternoons and early evenings. The airport contract paid $14 an hour and ran 3 nights a week from midnight until 4 in the morning. Working 80 hours a week, she cleared perhaps $2,000 a month after rent and utilities, and the bus passes that were not optional, and the food that kept her functional enough to work. $140,000 was 6 years of everything she earned before eating or traveling or replacing the shoes that were wearing through at the soles. "I do not have that kind of money," Zara said. The words came out quietly. "I understand. I am genuinely sorry, Miss Coleman. We need to see some movement on the payment arrangement by Friday." Dr. Osei left. Zara sat back down beside her mother's bed. She put her hands on her knees and looked at the floor and breathed. Her best friend Tanya found her 20 minutes later in the hospital chapel. The chapel was empty except for Zara and an elderly woman praying in Spanish in the front row. Tanya arrived with 2 cups of hospital coffee, sat down in the pew beside Zara, and did not immediately say anything, which was why Zara had been calling her best friend since they were 9 years old. "Nurse at the station said you looked like you were about to pass out," Tanya said eventually. "What happened?" $140,000, Zara said. "That is what I need. Half of the surgery cost. By Friday." Tanya let out a long, slow breath that was not quite a word. "I make maybe $2,000 a month after everything," Zara said. "You do the math." They sat with that for a moment. Then Tanya said, "My cousin Denise works for a cleaning company called Meridian Services. They service high-rise commercial buildings all through the city center. Corporate accounts, law firms, financial companies, the expensive buildings downtown. They pay $25 an hour to start, and there is always overtime because the clients want overnight cleaning, and most of the staff cannot sustain that schedule. Denise says people quit constantly. How much overtime? She says double shifts are available almost every week. The clients want their floors done at hours when nobody is in the building, and that means the work runs through the night. If you could get 40 hours a week there, plus keep the diner." Zara's mind was already moving through the numbers. $25 an hour. Overtime rates at $37.50. If she could work 60 hours a week between the 2 positions and keep the airport contract on weekends. "Text me Denise's number." Already doing it. Tanya pulled out her phone. "But Zara, I need you to hear me say one thing. I know, 1 real meal a day. Not whatever you can eat standing up between shifts. Actual food sitting down. And your vitamins. I promise. They shook on it the way they had been shaking on things since childhood. Simple and final. Zara looked at the chapel's small stained glass window, letting in the dull morning light. Whatever it takes, she said to herself. Whatever it takes. 3 weeks later, Zara sat in the orientation room for Meridian Cleaning Services in a folding chair between a woman who coughed without covering her mouth and a teenage boy who was clearly lying about his age on the employment form. The room smelled like the industrial carpet it was full of. The fluorescent light above her head buzzed at a frequency that eventually became indistinguishable from her own thoughts. The man running orientation was Mr. Bright, heavyset, late 50s, with the manner of someone who had been doing this job long enough to have lost his illusions about it, but not long enough to have stopped caring entirely. He went through the standard information. Meridian Services provided cleaning solutions for the city's most prestigious commercial clients. The clients expected excellence and discretion. He used the word invisibility. What does that mean exactly? Someone asked. It means you clean after hours, Mr. Bright said. You do not touch personal items. You do not engage with building occupants unless they directly address you first. You are the explanation for why their space is perfect when they arrive in the morning. You are not a person to them. You are a service. He clicked to the next slide. A photograph of a building appeared on the screen. 64 floors of steel and glass that caught the city's light and reflected it back like a mirror. The Hale building. Every person in the city knew it. We service the entire building, Mr. Bright said. Floors 1 through 57 on the standard rotation. Floors 58 through 64 are different. Different how? Someone asked. Because of who works there, Mr. Bright said. His voice shifted into something more careful. Marcus Hale, CEO of Hale Enterprises, one of the wealthiest individuals in the country for 8 consecutive years. He owns this building and approximately 60 others across the country and internationally. He clicked to a photograph. A man in a dark suit with sharp features and darker eyes that looked like they were evaluating something even in a still image. Mr. Hale has requirements, Mr. Bright continued, that exceed anything I have encountered in 23 years of this business. Everything on his floors must be perfect. I do not use that word loosely. In the past 14 months, I have lost 13 staff members from his rotation. 3 of them quit mid-shift. 2 of them cried when they handed me their resignations. One said she would rather be unemployed indefinitely. He paused to let that settle. Mr. Hale calls me personally to report infractions. He notices things that most people would not notice if they were specifically looking for them. The angle of a picture frame. The direction a vacuum cord is coiled. The position of items on his desk to within a fraction of an inch. He has fired staff for leaving fingerprints on a window, for using the wrong cleaning product on a specific surface, for being in a corridor when he unexpectedly needed to use it. He is not a difficult client, Mr. Bright said. He is a categorically different kind of client. Someone near the front asked about the pay rate for the Hale Floors. Mr. Bright's expression shifted into something that was the closest thing to a smile the orientation room had produced. $30 an hour. Overtime at $45. Plus a completion bonus for anyone who survives 6 months without being removed from the rotation. The room went quiet in a specific way. $30 an hour was the kind of number that rearranged the arithmetic of a person's life. How do we get assigned to those floors? Zara asked. You do not get assigned, Mr. Bright said. You earn it by demonstrating consistency and precision on the standard rotation. Then maybe, if I trust your work and your judgment, I consider putting you in the Hale rotation. He looked around the room. But I want to be clear. That assignment will eat you alive if you are not ready for it. Marcus Hale has a relationship with control and order that is not simply preference. It is clinical, it is consuming, and it is absolute. I will take it, Zara said. The room turned toward her. This whenever you are ready to trust me, I want that assignment. Zara's voice was steady. I will work harder than anyone you put on those floors. I will not complain and I will not quit. Mr. Bright studied her for a long moment with the practiced assessment of someone who has heard this particular promise many times and knows exactly how it usually ends. You have something driving this, he said. My mother has cancer, Zara said. Stage 4. Her surgery costs more than I will earn in 3 years. I need this. Mr. Bright was quiet. Everyone who volunteers for Hale duty has something desperate pushing them, he said finally. It is the only explanation for why anyone is willing to sustain it. He slid a thick, laminated binder across the desk. Start on the standard rotation tomorrow. Floors 12 through 23, night shift. You show me 2 weeks of clean work without a single complaint from a building manager, and then we talk about Hale. Zara took the binder. She held it with both hands. Thank you, she said. She walked out into the cool evening air and felt something unfamiliar move through her chest. Something small and tentative and real. Hope. Those 2 weeks on the standard rotation were the hardest and most instructive of Zara's working life. She learned things about commercial cleaning that no manual could have taught her. She learned how to work a floor systematically so that she never crossed a clean surface with dirty equipment. She learned how to move through a building at the pace that allowed her to finish everything without rushing anything. She learned that the difference between adequate work and excellent work was not effort, but attention. The specific quality of attention that comes from caring about a thing nobody else is watching. She worked with her body in pain for the entirety of those 2 weeks. Her feet ached, her back protested, her hands healed and cracked and healed again. She ate her one real meal a day as she had promised Tanya and took her vitamins and slept for 4 hours between the end of her Meridian shift and the beginning of her diner shift and kept going. Building managers on 3 different floors mentioned her name to Mr. Bright without being prompted. On day 12, he called her into his office. "You are good," he said. "Not just adequate, actually good." He did not seem entirely comfortable delivering this information, as though complimenting an employee was a muscle he did not use regularly. Fast and thorough, and I have not had a single complaint. I am short-staffed on the Hale Floors. 3 people resigned in the last 8 days. One of them walked out mid-shift without giving notice. Zara waited. "I am going to put you on the Hale rotation starting tonight." Mr. Bright leaned forward. "I need you to understand what you are walking into. The manual is not exaggeration. Every single requirement in it is non-negotiable. He will find the things you miss. He will call me at any hour to report them. You will be working alone on 9 floors over 8 hours, and everything must be perfect before the first staff arrive at 7:30. I understand. You will start at midnight." Mr. Bright slid an even thicker binder across the desk. "Read this on the bus on your way there." "And Miss Coleman." Zara looked up. "I hope whatever you are working toward is worth it." At 11:48 that night, Zara stood outside the Hale building looking up. The glass panels caught the city's light and gave it back amplified, the whole tower rising above the surrounding buildings like something that had been placed there deliberately to make a point about scale, about the distance between people who own things and people who clean them. She went inside. The lobby security guard was an older man named Walter, with close-cropped grey hair and kind eyes that had clearly seen a great many things in a great many years of sitting at this desk after midnight. "First night on the Hale Floors," he said when she checked in. Not a question. "Yes, sir." "You read the manual?" "I read it on the bus." Walter looked at her with the specific expression of someone who has watched this particular scene play out enough times to know how it usually ends. "Reading it and living it are not the same experience," he said. He handed her the key card for the service elevator. "You will be alone up there. Mr. Hale does not like multiple cleaning staff in his space. 9 floors in 8 hours. Everything done before 7:30. He paused. "Good luck," he said, and he meant it in the specific way of someone who understands that luck is going to be required. By 2 in the morning, Zara understood. The Hale floors were immaculate before she touched them. Cleaning them was less like cleaning and more like performing maintenance on a standard of perfection that already existed and needed only to be preserved. The work was not physically harder than what she had been doing on the standard rotation. It was psychologically harder. Every surface she touched felt important. Every decision about technique or sequence or product felt consequential. She found herself moving through the rooms with a held-breath care that she had never needed to apply anywhere else. And everywhere she looked, there were signs of the man's particular relationship with order. Books arranged first by subject, then by height, then by the color of their spines. Desk items placed with a geometric precision that went beyond aesthetics. The pens on every desk aligned parallel to the desk edge, within what looked like a millimeter. Even the handles of the coffee mugs in the break room pointed in the same direction at the same angle. This was not tidiness. This was a system. A comprehensive and total system for keeping the external world in a state that matched some internal requirement she could not fully name. By the time she reached the 64th floor and walked through the doors of Marcus Hale's personal executive suite, she was 2 hours behind schedule and running on the specific empty that comes from 16 hours of work. The suite was the most extraordinary room she had ever stood in. The desk, the art, the view, and the chair. The chair that looked like it had been designed for exactly the person who sat in it every day and had absorbed over years the precise shape of that person's presence. Zara knew the manual's position on furniture. She knew it clearly and without ambiguity, but her feet were in pain, her back was in pain, and the chair was there, just 5 minutes. She woke to something tapping her arm, something long and flat and deliberate, not unkind, just insistent. Wake up! The voice was deep and cold and very, very certain of itself. Zara's eyes opened. The man standing over her was not what she had built in her mind. She had assembled a mental image of Marcus Hale from the manual and Mr. Bright's warnings and Walter's expression. Something severe and rigid and old. What she found instead was a man in his 30s, tall and broad-shouldered in a dark suit that fit with the precision of things made for a specific person. His skin was deep brown. His jaw was sharp, his hair cut close, black leather gloves on both hands. His eyes were dark brown and in this moment completely without warmth. Zara tried to stand and her body did not cooperate with the speed the situation required. She half rose and caught the edge of the desk. "I am so deeply sorry," she said. "I was not supposed to. I sat down for a moment to rest and I must have. I will leave immediately. You will not have any further." "You fell asleep in my chair," Marcus said, "behind my desk, in my private office." Each word separated from the next with the precision of someone who is choosing them carefully. He moved around the desk with considerable distance from her and reached for his phone. "I am contacting Morrison." "Meridian," Zara said. He looked at her. "The company is called Meridian Services." She had no idea why she was correcting him. Her mouth was apparently still operating independently of her survival instincts. "I am contacting your employer," Marcus said. "You are terminated. Security will escort you out. Please." The word came out before she had decided to say it. "Please, Mr. Hale, I need this job. My mother has cancer. Her surgery is scheduled for the end of the month, and I need to make the payment by Friday. Please give me a chance to make this right." Marcus's expression did not change. "Everyone has a circumstance," he said. "I know," Zara said. "I am not asking you to care about mine. I am asking you to tell me what I need to do and let me do it." He reached for the phone. Zara did something she would not have done if she had been fully conscious and properly rested and thinking clearly. She reached out and grabbed his wrist. The effect was immediate and completely unlike anything she had experienced before. It was not pain, it was entirely the opposite of pain. A current of something warm and electric moved up her arm and through her chest and her whole body in less than a second. Pleasant and shocking and disorienting all at once. She gasped and released him instantly. Marcus recoiled. His whole body jerked backward with a force that was almost involuntary, barely controlled, the response of someone whose nervous system had received information it did not know how to categorize. His elbow caught the edge of the desk. The phone arced through the air, spinning end over end, and hit the marble floor with a sound like something final. The screen shattered completely. Total silence. Marcus stood looking at his gloved wrist where she had touched him. His expression had changed in a way she could not read, not to anger exactly, to something more complicated than anger and more inward-facing. "That phone," he said, very quietly, "was custom-made and encrypted. One of a kind. It cost $80,000. Zara stared at the pieces on the floor. $80,000. "You are going to pay for it," Marcus said. His voice was still controlled, but his eyes kept returning to his wrist with a quality she could not name. "Every penny. I do not have $80,000. That is why I'm here at 3 in the morning cleaning your floors. Then you will work it off." Marcus produced another phone from inside his jacket. "You will come to my residential building every morning at 6. You will manage my household for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Cooking, cleaning, errands, everything my current staff handles. At an hourly rate of $30, your debt will be cleared in approximately 2 years. You want me to be your personal servant. Why, I want you to compensate me for destroying my property. Then fire me and take me to court," Zara said, "because I am not going to spend 2 years as your domestic staff." She turned and walked out. She walked through the corridor and into the service elevator and kept her eyes on the doors all the way down and walked through the lobby and out into the 4 in the morning air and got a cab to the hospital. She ran through the doors at 4:12. Her chest was heaving. The electricity of what had happened when she touched him was still in her arms somehow, still present. She ran to her mother's room and found it full of people, a medical team surrounding the bed, equipment she had not seen there before, a urgency in the movement of the nurses. "Miss Coleman," Dr. Osi turned. "Your mother has gone into cardiac arrest. We have stabilized her, but she is critical. We need to operate now. This is the window. If we wait, we will lose it. Then operate. We cannot operate without the payment, Miss Coleman. The hospital's position has not changed. $140,000 before we proceed. I do not have it. I am working. I am trying. I need more time." Dr. Ose's voice was gentle and devastating. "We do not have more time. Tonight is the window. After tonight." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. 2 large men in dark suits appeared at the end of the corridor. "Miss Coleman." "Preston, Marcus Hale's head of security. Mr. Hale requires your presence." "I am not leaving," Zara said. "My mother is in cardiac arrest." Preston's phone rang. He answered and put it on speaker at a gesture from the second man. "Is the physician present?" But Marcus Hale's voice came through the device. Clear and precise, Dr. Osi answered. "I am the attending physician, yes. What is the total outstanding balance on the patient's account?" Dr. Osi looked at Zara, then at the phone. "The full surgical and treatment balance is approximately $300,000. A brief silence. "Transfer the full amount," Marcus said. "Mark it as paid in full. I want the patient in surgery within the hour." Preston was already on another call. "Jenkins, transfer $300,000 to General City Hospital. Patient Rose Coleman. Full outstanding balance. Immediately." Dr. Ose stared. "Who authorized this? Who is this?" "Someone settling an obligation," Marcus said. "Miss Coleman." Zara could not speak. "The terms have changed. Your mother's medical costs are now paid in full. In return, you owe me $380,000. At $30 an hour, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in my household, that debt will clear in approximately 2 years. You start tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock at my residential address, which is being sent to your phone now. Do not be late." The line went dead. Dr. Osi looked at Zara for a long moment. Then he looked at his screen. "The funds have cleared," he said quietly. "Miss Coleman, we are preparing your mother for surgery now. She has a chance." Zara looked through the glass at the room where they were taking her mother. A chance. It was the only thing she had ever asked for. The only thing she had spent 6 months working 3 jobs to get close enough to. And the price was 2 years of her life. The address was in the most expensive residential district in the city. Zara stood outside the tower at 5:52 in the morning after 2 buses because she could not afford anything else, holding a key card and standing very still. She had not slept. The surgery was still ongoing. Dr. Osi had promised to call the moment there was news. 2 years, she told herself. Just 2 years. Then Mama comes home and the debt is gone, and this is something that happened to you once. She went inside. The penthouse was everything she had expected and somehow more. The scale of it, the perfect whiteness of it, the art on the walls and the furniture that looked like it belonged behind velvet ropes, and the view through the floor to ceiling windows of the water and the city that the morning light was just beginning to reach, and the silence of it. The particular silence of a space that has been maintained at a standard that leaves no room for mess or disorder, or the small comfortable accumulations of a life actually being lived in a place. "You are 8 minutes early." Zara turned. Marcus stood in a doorway she had not noticed, dressed in workout clothes, a towel around his neck, a water bottle in his hand. He had clearly just finished exercising. He looked at her with the same assessing quality she had seen in his office, the look of a man who processes information about people the way others process information about data. "I thought early was better than late," Zara said. "Early is unpredictable. Unpredictable disrupts the schedule." His eyes moved over her briefly. "However, I suppose it demonstrates something. The schedule is on the kitchen counter. Follow it exactly. I will be in my office. Do not interrupt me unless there is a structural emergency." He disappeared through another doorway before she could respond. Zara stood in the vast living room and looked around and breathed. 2 years. The schedule was typed and printed and laminated. The lamination told her everything she needed to know about how long it had been in use and how unlikely it was to change. 6 o'clock. Breakfast preparation. Egg white omelette with spinach and capsicum. No cheese. 1 slice multigrain toast, dry. Black coffee, French press, exactly 4 minutes brewing time. Fresh orange juice, hand squeezed, not from carton or concentrate. 7 o'clock. Serve breakfast. Eastern placemat. Utensils exactly 1 inch from plate edge. Coffee cup handle at 3 o'clock position. The list ran for 3 laminated pages. So every hour of her 12-hour day was specified. She found a kitchen and began. The omelette was not a success, not a disaster, but genuinely not what the schedule required. The eggs went rubbery, and when she attempted to fold them, the whole thing separated. She plated it as well as she could and added the toast, which was correct, and the coffee, which had taken her careful attention, and the orange juice, which had taken 25 minutes to produce by hand on a manual press because of course there was no electric juicer. At exactly 7 o'clock, she carried the tray to the dining room. Marcus was already seated in a dark suit reading something on a screen. He did not look up when she entered. She placed everything according to the schedule. Placemat, utensils, cup handle at 3 o'clock. He glanced at the plate. His jaw shifted slightly. "This omelette is scrambled," he said. "I know. I am not a professional chef. I did my best. Your best produced scrambled eggs when I requested an omelette. Then perhaps you should adjust your expectations." She heard it come out of her mouth, and in the same fraction of a second registered that this was possibly not the optimal response to give the man who owned her next 2 years. Marcus looked up at her. The silence stretched. Then something moved in his expression. Not quite amusement, but in the same family. "Adjust my expectations," he repeated, slowly, as though testing the structural integrity of the phrase. "No one has ever suggested that to me before." He picked up his fork and took a deliberate bite. He chewed with the focused attention he applied to everything. He swallowed. "It is adequate," he said. "Tomorrow you will watch instructional content on proper omelette technique and practice until the result is correct." He took a sip of coffee. "The coffee, however, is exactly right. Whatever you did, do it the same way tomorrow." He returned to his screen. Zara turned to leave. "Miss Coleman." She looked back. "You do not need to call me sir," Marcus said, without looking up. "We will be working in close proximity for 2 years. Formality serves no purpose." He did not look up. Zara left the dining room and stood in the corridor for a moment. She was not entirely sure what to make of any of that. The first week established the rhythm of her days. She arrived at 6. She made breakfast. She worked through the schedule. She cleaned and organized and prepared and managed and attended to every detail of a household that was already immaculate, maintaining a standard that had been set before her arrival and would continue after she was gone. She was good at it. She had always been good at this kind of work. The attention it required, the systematic quality of it, the satisfaction of a thing done properly, that stayed done. She moved through Marcus's penthouse with the focused efficiency of someone who has learned through necessity how to work well in a limited amount of time. And she learned him in the way that you learn a person when you spend 12 hours a day in their space. Not through conversation, they were rarely in the same room for any length of time by design and by his clear preference, but through observation, through the space he had made around himself and what it said about who he was underneath it. She learned that the arrangement of his books was not random but deeply personal. History and biography organized with a care that suggested he had spent real time thinking about where each one belonged. She learned that the coffee was not about caffeine, but about ritual. The same 4 minutes of French press preparation being the first deliberate act of his day before everything else started demanding things from him. She learned that he was in his office by 7:30 every morning and worked without a visible break until she brought his lunch at noon and he ate it at his desk without looking away from his screen for more than 30 seconds. She learned that he wore gloves whenever he left the penthouse and that this was not affectation. On the 4th day, she was in the kitchen making his afternoon coffee when she became aware that she was not alone in the room. She had not heard him come in, but she felt the particular quality of being observed that she was beginning to recognize as his. She turned. Marcus was standing near the kitchen island, not doing anything, not inspecting anything, just standing there with his hands at his sides, approximately 2 feet closer to her than the room required. Is something wrong with the kitchen? She asked. No. Do you need something? No. He paused. I was checking on your progress. I am making coffee. Yes. Zara waited. Marcus looked at her steadily for a moment with that unreadable assessing expression. Then he turned and left, without further comment. It happened twice more that week. She would turn from what she was doing to find him closer than the situation required, his hand extended slightly in her direction as though he had been about to touch her shoulder or tap her arm. Both times he pulled back immediately when she turned. Both times the explanation he offered did not quite fit the situation. You were going to knock that over. That picture frame is crooked. Your sleeve was near the candle. She filed it away and kept working. At lunchtime on the 4th day, he appeared in the kitchen while she was eating the sandwich she had brought from home. He looked at the sandwich with an expression that was somewhere between genuine puzzlement and mild horror. Is that processed meat? It is cheap and it fills me up. I have fresh ingredients in that refrigerator, he said, moving toward it. Your ingredients are for your meals. You work here. What is available in this kitchen is available to you. Marcus assembled something on a plate without appearing to think about it. Good bread, smoked salmon, fresh cheese, greens that looked like they had been delivered that morning. He slid the plate across the counter. Eat this instead. Zara looked at the plate. It was better than anything she had eaten in 2 weeks. Why does it matter to you what I eat? She asked. Marcus's back was to her as he returned things to the refrigerator. If you are unwell, you cannot work. If you cannot work, my household becomes disorganized. It is a practical consideration. He left without waiting for a response. Zara looked at the plate he had made. She ate it. On day 9, she confronted the hovering. She was making his afternoon coffee. He had been in the kitchen for 12 minutes, which was 8 minutes longer than any practical purpose required. Why do you keep doing that? She said, without turning around. Doing what? Coming close to me, reaching toward me and then pulling back. If there is something wrong with my work, say it directly. There is nothing wrong with your work. Then what is it? Marcus was quiet for long enough that she turned. His expression was different from any she had seen on it before, less controlled. Something showing underneath the architecture of his composure that she had not seen there previously. When you grabbed my wrist in the office, he said, when you touched me, did you feel something unusual? Feel something. Something that surprised you. Something you would not normally expect from an accidental touch. She thought about the current that had moved through her, the warmth and electric shock of it. She had been telling herself for 9 days that it was adrenaline and panic, and the distortion of extreme exhaustion. I am not sure what you mean, she said carefully. Marcus held out his hand. Touch me again, he said. She stared at him. Your hand on my wrist as it was in the office. I need to know if it happens when I expect it, or only when I do not. His voice was measured and clinical, the voice of a man proposing a controlled test of a variable. You have a condition, Zara said slowly, that makes physical contact with other people intolerable. You wear gloves to shake hands in business meetings. You have your office cleaned twice a day. Why are you asking me to touch you? Because I need to know whether what I experienced was real, Marcus said, or whether I constructed it out of something else. Zara looked at his extended hand for a long moment. Then slowly, she reached out and placed her fingers on his wrist. The electricity was immediate, the same warm current running up her arm and through her chest. She heard herself make a small sound. She felt his entire body go completely still. But this time he did not pull away. He stood looking at her hand on his skin with an expression she had never seen on another person's face. Something opening in it. Something that had been closed for a very long time. You feel it, he said. It was barely a question. Yes, Zara said. I feel it. With everyone else, Marcus said, his voice barely above sound. Contact feels like contamination. Something entering me that I cannot remove. The response is immediate, and it takes a considerable amount of effort to manage. He paused, and she watched something move through his face that was not easy to watch. With you, it is the opposite, he said. What does it feel like? She asked. Like I am alive, he said. Like I have been standing on the outside of something, and you are the first person who has made me feel like I might be able to go inside. They stood like that for a long moment, her hand on his wrist. the current between them, neither of them pulling away. Then Zara slowly took her hand back. Marcus looked at his wrist for a moment, then at her. Neither of them said anything. Zara turned back to the coffee. The cups went on the counter at exactly the right time. That night she lay in her apartment and stared at the ceiling and had a very direct internal conversation with herself about what she was and was not allowed to feel about the man who had trapped her in a debt she could not escape and simultaneously paid for her mother's life-saving surgery, and stood in his kitchen asking her to touch his wrist because apparently she was the only person whose touch did not make him feel contaminated. Do not be ridiculous, she told herself. He is your employer. He is essentially your captor. There is a power imbalance here that a person of ordinary intelligence could identify from a significant distance. She rolled over and pressed her face into the pillow. But when she thought about his face, when he said, like, I am alive, the specific quality of vulnerability in a man whose entire existence was organized around not being vulnerable, she knew she was already lying to herself. 1 week later, Marcus appeared in the laundry room doorway while she was folding his shirts according to the diagram he had provided, which she had found initially exasperating and now found oddly comforting in the way that very specific systems become comforting once you understand their internal logic. You are humming, he said. Zara looked up. What? For the past 5 days, the same melody. He was looking at her with the careful attention she was becoming familiar with. What is it? A gospel song my mother sang in the kitchen when I was small. Zara felt her face warm slightly. I did not realize I was doing it out loud. Your mother is recovering well, Marcus said. When the latest report from Dr. Ose indicated she is ahead of the projected recovery timeline. The surgical results exceeded expectations. Zara went still over the shirt in her hands. He was tracking her mother's recovery, receiving updates, monitoring the condition of a woman he had never met because he had paid for her surgery and apparently considered that a reason to stay informed. How long have you been following her progress? Zara asked. Since the surgery, Marcus said. The hospital sends updates to the account that covers the payment. I review them. He said it practically, as though this was simply an extension of the financial arrangement, as though monitoring the health of a stranger was a normal accounting practice. But Zara noticed the way his right hand moved at his side, just slightly. The same small flexing movement she had seen several times now. The gesture of someone who is remembering the sensation of something. Thank you, she said quietly, for paying for everything. I know I am working it off, but still. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the gratitude in a way that seemed entirely genuine. It was a transaction, he said. The terms were established. He turned to leave. Marcus, Zara said. He stopped with his back to her. You do not have to keep calling it a transaction, she said. I know what it was. I know what you did. You do not have to hide it. He was still for a moment. Then he left without responding. But Zara noticed that his hand was no longer flexing at his side. Something in him had settled. She smiled at the shirt she was folding. The quarterly building inspection arrived on a Tuesday afternoon without adequate warning. Marcus took the call from building management in the kitchen while Zara was preparing his lunch, and she watched his composure do something she had never seen it do before. She watched it crack, not dramatically, not in a way that most people would have noticed, but she had been in proximity to Marcus Hale for enough weeks now to read him in the way you read a person when you spend 12 hours a day in their space. And what she saw in his face when he ended that call was genuine and unmanaged distress. 2 hours, he said. The inspection is in 2 hours. Everything is in order, she said. I cleaned every room this morning. Not the bedroom. Marcus's voice was tight. I had an episode last night. A bad one. The bedroom is not. He stopped. Go and look, Sunny, he said. She went. She opened the bedroom door and stood in the doorway. The room looked like something had moved through it in crisis. The bed destroyed. Bedding twisted and half on the floor. The sheets pulled entirely free of the mattress corners. Books knocked from the nightstand. A glass broken, water spread across the floor. One of the curtain rods pulled partway from the wall, the fabric hanging at an angle. This was not disorder. This was the aftermath of someone who had been somewhere else entirely in the night. Marcus appeared behind her. I have PTSD, he said. His voice was flat with the flatness of someone saying something they have said before and have never found easier to say. When the nightmares are severe, I wake up disoriented. I believe I am somewhere else, Somewhere from a long time ago. And by the time I am actually awake, he gestured at the room. He looked small in a way she had not seen before. Not physically small, but small in the particular way of a person whose armor has slipped and who knows it. How much time do we have? Zara asked. 1 hour and 50 minutes. Then we should start. They worked. She stripped the bed and remade it with fresh linens while he picked up the broken glass and cleaned the water from the floor. She straightened the curtain and reattached the rod while he reorganized the fallen books. She vacuumed while he wiped every surface. At one point, they both reached for the same pillow at the same moment, and their hands met on the fabric, and the electricity ran between them, and neither of them pulled away immediately. They stood there in the middle of the room they had just put back together, one hands touching on the pillow, looking at each other. Something moved between them that neither of them had words for yet. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for not requiring an explanation, for just helping." "You are welcome," Zara said. The inspection passed without incident. When the building manager and her colleague had gone, Marcus was in his office, sitting at his desk, not looking at his screen. "They are gone," Zara said from the doorway. "Everything passed." He exhaled once, quietly. "Thank you for managing it." Zara walked into the office and sat down in the chair across from his desk. She had never done this before. It felt forward and slightly presumptuous and also necessary. "Tell me about the fire," she said. Marcus was still for a long time. Then he started talking. He was 7 years old. His father worked long hours. His mother worked evenings. It was often just Marcus and his little sister Nia at home. Nia was 5, Marcus was 7, and full of the particular recklessness of a child who has too much energy and not enough understanding of consequences. He found his father's lighter. He had been told 100 times not to touch it. He touched it anyway. The way children do. A match fell on his bedspread. The fire moved with a speed that had no relationship to anything he had imagined fire could do. Within seconds, the bed was involved. Within a minute, the curtains. Within 2 minutes, the walls. The smoke arrived before the heat did, and by the time the heat arrived, he could barely see. He ran for Nia. His father came home early. He heard them. He ran inside and got both children out onto the street. The neighbors were already calling for help. The 2 children were safe. Mullah then his father went back inside for their cat, the family's cat that Nia had named and talked to every morning. 6 months old. His father went back in, and the house chose that moment to begin its collapse. Nia pulled free of Marcus's hand and ran toward the door. He was 7 years old. She was 5. He grabbed for her, but she was already moving. His father died in the fire. Nia died 3 hours later in hospital from smoke inhalation. The cat survived because the cat had already gotten out through a window on the other side of the house. That detail, Marcus said, was something he had not been able to stop thinking about for 23 years. His mother had looked at him at the funeral with an expression that told him everything. She had checked him into his uncle's care within 2 weeks. She had gone to a treatment facility, but she had told the doctors she did not want contact with him. He had grown up in his uncle's house, which was large and expensive and provided everything and gave him nothing. His uncle was not cruel. He was simply absent in the way that wealthy people can be absent while being physically present. He had given Marcus the best schools and a significant inheritance and had never once asked him how he was doing. Marcus had built himself into the man sitting across from Zara now. The gloves and the perfect floors and the chair that cost more than most people's cars. The man who had constructed a world of absolute control, because absolute control was the opposite of the moment when a 7-year-old boy's curiosity had unmade everything he had. "Is that why the OCD developed?" Zara asked. "Trauma response," Marcus said. "Well, I lost control once and it destroyed my entire world. So now I cannot tolerate even the smallest disorder. Everything has to be contained and exact and clean." He looked at her. "It is my punishment," he said. "I deserve to live this way. It is the minimum of what I owe them." Zara stood up and walked around the desk. Marcus watched her warily. She held out her hand. He looked at it for a moment. Then he placed his hand in hers and the electricity ran between them as it always did. But this time Zara held it and looked at him and said, "You were 7 years old. What happened was a terrible accident that a child could not have anticipated or controlled. You did not murder your father. You did not murder your sister. You were a boy who made a mistake, and the people around you, the ones whose entire job was to help you carry it. Salma failed to do that." Marcus's jaw was tight. The prison you have built for yourself does not honor them, Zara said. It just slowly finishes what that fire started. And I do not think that is what they would have wanted. His eyes were bright with something he was working very hard to keep contained. I cannot let go of the control, he said. I do not know who I am without it. You will not burn down the world if you stop punishing yourself, Zara said gently. You will just start living in it again. They stood with their hands clasped in the middle of his office for a long time. Then Marcus said quietly, "Tomorrow is Sunday, your day off." "Yes. Would you consider letting me come with you to visit your mother? I understand hospitals are difficult for me. The contamination concerns are significant. But I would like to meet the woman who raised someone capable of saying what you just said to me in my own office, if that is acceptable." Something warm moved through Zara's chest. "Yeah," she said softly. "That would be acceptable." Sunday morning, cool and clear, the autumn light coming at an angle that made the city look as though someone had considered it. Zara was outside the hospital at 9 when the car pulled up and Marcus got out. He had dressed differently. Dark jeans, a grey shirt, a leather jacket. Still expensive, it was not possible for Marcus Hale to wear anything that was not expensive, but different somehow. Less constructed, more present, he was carrying a small bag. "What is that?" Zara asked. "Preparation." He opened it. Hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, disposable gloves, and a small spray bottle of what appeared to be a professional-grade antiseptic solution. "I am entering a hospital," he said. "This is the minimum viable response to that." Zara could have made a comment. She did not. The fact that he was here, that he had come, that he was walking voluntarily into the environment he found most intolerable, specifically to meet her mother, made the comment feel beside the point. "You did not have to do this," she said. "I know." He met her eyes. "I wanted to." He made it 16 steps inside before his breathing changed. "You all right?" she asked. "Completely fine," Marcus said, deploying the hand sanitizer and snapping on the gloves with the focused efficiency of someone running a protocol. They got in the elevator with 2 other people. Marcus moved to the corner and kept his eyes on the middle distance with his jaw set. When the elevator shifted and someone stumbled slightly into him, he flinched with a whole-body response that he immediately and visibly controlled. Zara reached out and touched the small gap of skin between his glove and his jacket cuff. He looked at her. "You are doing well," she said quietly. "I am having a sustained panic response in a confined space," Marcus said. "But you are still here. That is the part that counts." His fingers moved fractionally, almost reaching for hers. Then the elevator opened. Mama Rose was awake. For the first time since the surgery, her eyes were open and clear. And when Zara came through the door, her face produced the smile that Zara had been working 3 jobs for 6 months to see again. "Baby girl, come here." Zara went to her mother's bedside and held the hand without the IV line and felt something unknot in her chest that had been knotted since February. "Mama," she said, "this is Marcus. He is my employer." Mama Rose's eyes, sharp and assessing despite everything, moved to Marcus standing carefully near the doorway. "The one who paid my medical bills," she said. "Yes, Mom." Marcus nodded respectfully, both gloved hands at his sides. "It is an honor to meet you, Mrs. Coleman. Your daughter has spoken very highly of you." "Has she?" Mama Rose studied him with the focused attention of a woman who has spent 20 years reading people accurately. "And how does my daughter's employer end up paying $300,000 of her medical bills at 4 in the morning?" "Your daughter is working off the debt," Marcus said. "She serves as my household manager for 2 years at a rate of $30 an hour, which covers the outstanding balance." Mama Rose was quiet for a moment. "So you trapped her," she said, "in a contract she could not refuse because the alternative was watching me die." She said it plainly. "That is not generosity, Mr. Hale. That is coercion, and I want you to tell me to my face whether you understand the difference." The room was very quiet. "You are right," Marcus said. Zara stared at him. "Your mother is entirely correct," he said. "I used your daughter's desperation to secure an arrangement that served my interests. I told myself it was a transaction with clear terms. That was not the whole truth." "What was the whole truth?" Mama Rose asked. Marcus was still for a moment. Then he said, "The whole truth is that your daughter is the only person I have encountered in 23 years whose touch does not produce the response my condition produces with everyone else. I trapped her here because I am selfish, and I wanted to understand why. Because she made me feel something I had stopped expecting to feel. He looked directly at Mama Rose. And because I believe I am falling in love with her, he said. Which makes what I did worse, not better. I am aware of that. Zara forgot to breathe for a moment. Mama Rose looked at Marcus Hale for a long time with the expression of a woman who has seen a great many things and learned to recognize truth when it is being said. Sit down, Mr. Hale, she said finally. Marcus sat. Do you have PTSD? Mama Rose asked. Yes, Mom. Are you in therapy? No. Why not? Because I do not deserve to get better. Why, Marcus said. I caused a fire when I was 7 that killed my father and my sister. My condition is what I owe them. Mama Rose was quiet for a moment. That, she said, is the most self-defeating thing I have ever heard from an intelligent person. Marcus blinked. You were a child. Children make terrible mistakes. Mistakes with consequences that cannot be undone. But punishing yourself for the rest of your life does not honor the people you lost. It just wastes the one you still have. She turned her attention to Zara. If you want to continue working for this man after today, that is your choice. But it needs to be your actual choice, not an obligation you cannot escape. She turned back to Marcus. You go to therapy, real therapy, consistent and proper. You stop treating your condition as a punishment, and you start treating it as something you deserve to heal from, because you do deserve to heal from it. She pointed a finger at him that despite everything still carried authority. And if you want to be with my daughter, you court her properly. You learn who she is outside of your apartment. You take her to dinner. You ask her questions. You show up for her. And if she chooses you, it is because she wants you, not because she owes you anything. Yes, Mom, Marcus said. Good. Mama Rose leaned back against her pillows. When all of that is done, you can come back here and I will thank you properly for saving my life without feeling like my daughter paid for it with her freedom. In the hospital parking lot afterward, neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Marcus said, Your mother is extraordinary. Yes, Zara agreed. She is. She is also entirely correct. Marcus turned to face her fully. I am releasing you from the contract, effective immediately. The debt is forgiven entirely. You are free, Zara, no conditions attached. What? I trapped you, Marcus said. That was wrong. I am making it right. But the money, he said, has never been what this was about. He looked at her directly, and his face was more open than she had seen it. What this has been about is that you are the first person in 23 years who has made me feel like being alive is something other than a consequence I have to endure. And I would rather lose all of it than keep you here against your will. Zara stood in the cool morning air outside the hospital looking at this man. I need time to think, she said. This is a great deal at once. I know. He called his driver. Whatever you decide, your mother's care continues. No conditions and no debt, simply because she deserves it. The car came. Zara got in. She looked back through the window as it pulled away and saw Marcus standing alone in the parking lot, hands at his sides, looking more alone than she had seen him look in all the weeks she had been inside his life. 3 days later, Tanya arrived with pizza and wine and the specific manner of a best friend who has been patient and is now done being patient. Talk to me, Tanya said, sitting on the couch. You have been inside your own head for 3 days. Zara told her everything. The contract release, what Marcus had said in the parking lot, what her mother had said in the hospital room, what she felt when she thought about going back, and what she felt when she thought about not going back. Tanya listened to all of it without interrupting, which was a significant act of self-restraint for Tanya. Do you love him? She asked when Zara was done. I do not know yet. Maybe. I want to find out. I think I need to find out. Then what? Tanya said. Are you waiting for? Zara showed up at the penthouse on the 4th evening with the key card she had never been asked to return. She took the elevator up. The penthouse was dark when she arrived. No lights, no sound. She walked through the living room and stopped. A jacket was thrown over a chair, dishes in the sink, a coffee cup left on the counter. The perfect immaculate order of Marcus Hale's world was quietly coming apart at the edges. She found him in the bedroom, sitting on the floor with his back against the bed in the half-dark, looking at nothing. The room was not destroyed the way it had been after the nightmare, but things were slightly displaced. Items moved from their assigned positions. The specific disarray of someone who had stopped maintaining the performance. He looked up when she came in. Zara, he said, what are you doing here? I came to give you my answer, she said. He stood slowly. But first I need to know something, she said. When you told me in the parking lot that you were falling in love with me, was that true? Or was it the right thing to say in that moment to secure a particular outcome? Marcus looked at her steadily. It was true, he said. It is true. I do not say things I do not mean. I am not always good at saying the things I do mean. But what I do say is accurate. Zara nodded. I have conditions, she said. Tell me. You start therapy this week. Real, consistent, proper therapy with a qualified practitioner. Not medication management. Actual work. I have already scheduled the first appointment. Thursday morning. You stop using your condition as a punishment, Zara said. You work on healing because you deserve to heal. Not because I am asking you to. For yourself. I understand. We start again, she said, properly. You take me somewhere that is not your apartment, and we figure out who we are to each other outside of employer and employee. Those are fair conditions. And fourth, she said. She crossed the room and took his hand and let the electricity run between them the way it always did. You let me help you clean up this apartment tonight. Buoyant because people who choose each other do not let each other fall apart alone. Marcus looked at their joined hands, then at her face. He put his arms around her. He pulled her into a proper full embrace and held her there, and she felt him breathe, the particular quality of breath of someone who has been holding something for a very long time and is finally, carefully, putting it down. This does not make you feel contaminated, she said against his shoulder. No, he said quietly. With you it has never felt like contamination. They stood in his imperfect bedroom, holding each other while the city moved outside the windows. Her phone rang. She answered it quickly. Miss Coleman, Dr. Osie's voice. I wanted to call you personally with this news. Your mother's latest results are exceptional. She is being discharged in 5 days. The cancer is in remission. Your mother has beaten it, Miss Coleman. Zara stood absolutely still. She turned to Marcus and found him already watching her, and before she said a word, he had read her face. She is coming home, Zara said. She beat it. She actually beat it. Marcus pulled her back into the embrace, and she felt his chest move with something he was allowing himself to feel. Two people in a room that had been put back together, holding each other, feeling the electricity that ran between them, not just as the strange physical phenomenon, it was but as something more, something that had been building since a woman fell asleep in a chair and a man chose not to pick up the phone. 1 year later, they stood together in the executive suite on the 64th floor. The room looked exactly as it always had. Immaculate and ordered and precisely controlled. Except for one thing. On the desk beside the phone and the aligned pens there was a photograph. The two of them caught mid-laugh by a camera at a restaurant they'd gone to on their third proper date. His arm around her, her head thrown back. Real and imperfect, and alive in a way that no controlled environment could produce. I cannot believe you kept that chair, Zara said. Marcus sat down in it and looked at her. That chair is where everything started, he said. You fell asleep in it and changed the direction of everything. She sat with him, which was something they did now in the impractical and slightly absurd way of people who have stopped caring whether things are practical or not. Make a wish, Marcus said. Zara thought about the year. About Mama Rose coming home and sitting in Zara's kitchen complaining that Zara had rearranged the spice cabinet. About Marcus's Thursday therapy appointments, which he attended without fail and complained about regularly and never missed. About the evening his mother Catherine had appeared at the penthouse door, having found him through a news article, and the long, difficult conversation that had happened in the living room while Zara made tea in the kitchen and let them have it. About the way that conversation had not resolved everything but had started something. About Marcus coming to find her afterward and simply sitting in the kitchen with her while she cooked and not saying anything and not needing to. About the way he had started leaving one item slightly out of its assigned position in each room of the apartment, not accidentally. Deliberately. Practice, his therapist had called it. Evidence that the world does not end when things are slightly imperfect. I wish for more of this, Zara said. More of us choosing each other. More healing and more growth, and more of figuring out what life looks like when you stop punishing yourself for being human. That is a good wish, Marcus said. He kissed her. Outside the floor to ceiling windows, the city moved in its complicated and relentless way. Inside the office, everything was in its assigned place, except for the photograph on the desk, which was evidence of something that could not be controlled or contained or assigned a position, something real and imperfect and alive. Love is not about finding someone who is perfect or someone who has it all together. It is about finding someone who makes you want to stop hiding from yourself. Someone who sees you at your most broken and your most controlled and your most frightened and does not look away. Someone who makes the work of healing feel like something other than punishment. And sometimes the worst moment of your life, the moment of absolute exhaustion and desperation, is the exact doorway that leads you to the best thing you will ever find. If this story moved you, hit the like button right now and tell us in the comments your favorite moment. And before you go, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. If you are in the United States, type US, United Kingdom, type UK, Australia, type AUS, Canada, type Canada, Norway, type Norway, Switzerland, type Switzerland, Denmark, type Denmark. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we have more stories coming that will make you feel everything. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.